Joining us right now, Brian Dutcher. Dutch, it's good to have you on the Mighty 1090 in the morning again with Ben and Woods. How are you?
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's good. So what's the current situation in the offseason? Like, where are you at in terms of recruiting, scouting? Is this downtime for you?
I wish it was downtime, but there's no such thing.
Nope.
We had another kid on campus last weekend we're trying to get hopefully committed and signed this week at some point. Got maybe 2 more kids coming for visits in the coming weeks, and we still have 2 scholarships available, so we're out there looking for really good players to fill those. And if we can't get them, we'll hold our money and look for someone next year.
Well, Dutch, let's start with the transfer. Malachi Flynn, a guy that, if Aztecs fans remember, you played against last season in the Wooden Legacy up in Orange County. He had a great game for Washington State. First of all, why was he available? I mean, what was the reason he decided to transfer from Washington State? And then tell me about the process of landing him and what he's going to be able to bring to the program once he's eligible.
You know, Malachi's a fantastic player and averaged close to 17 a game at Washington State, and he did it against defense that were set and keyed toward him. So the numbers he put up were really impressive. I saw Greg McDermott at a Nike clinic in Vegas this weekend. We were both speaking, and it came down to Creighton and San Diego State in the end, and Greg gave me a hug and said, "God darn it, you got the guy I wanted." And so I felt pretty good about that. Malachi wanted an opportunity to win and to get to the NCAA tournament. And obviously, having been 7 of the last 9 years, we sold that hard, and he felt that he could come here and help us continue that tradition.
Talking to Sdsu basketball head coach Brian Dutcher here on San Diego Sports Leader. Coach, I am absolutely fascinated with the recruiting process. I was in sales, and I remember what it felt like to close a big deal. When you get one of these guys, what is that feeling like for you, and how long does that moment last? Because I got to imagine you got to get right back to it.
Absolutely, and it's the hardest part of the business. I mean, basically, your life is determined on what a 17-year-old wants to do with the next 4 years of his life. So if that's any kind of job stability, I'd be shocked. But it is sales, and there's no second place in sales. You get the sale or you don't.
Yep.
And so we put a lot of effort into it. We put a lot of time into it, and these kids have nothing but good choices. That's what people don't understand. I mean, to choose between Creighton and Baylor and Texas A&M and San Diego State for a kid, what bad choice is there? And so it's disappointing when you lose one, but you have to be happy for that young man that makes the choice where he wants to spend the next 4 years of his life.
What was the great sales movie? Glengarry Glen Ross.
Glen Ross, yes.
Coffee is for closers. And we're talking with Brian Dutcher, head coach, San Diego State basketball, with us on the Mighty 1090. So you've always been a recruiter. I mean, you've done that for years and years. But as the closer, I mean, you know, Steve Fisher was the closer to come in to the final handshake with the parents, and you trust your 17-year-old with this guy. He's got a very trustworthy face. Not that you don't. You do, but what did you learn about being a closer from Coach Fisher, and what's your style of getting that final commitment?
I think the key in anything is be a better listener than a talker. Listen to what they want. Listen to what their concerns are, and then address them. You know, don't talk over the recruit. You know, don't try to get to your next point so rapidly where you fail to listen what's important to them. And so I think if I've learned anything from Coach Fisher, it's to be a good listener. And then obviously when it's time to speak truthfully, to speak from your heart. And if it's what they want to hear, then they're coming. If it's not, then you move on to the next prospect. And that's the real nature of recruiting.
That's actually important in radio as well. Not everyone does it that well, but I've got a good listener over here in Woodsy.
And I have a good listener in Ben.
Sometimes.
Most of the time.
Well, obviously, someone's talking, so I don't know if both of you are listening.
Coach Brian Dutcher is with us. So we talked about the transfer, Malachi Flynn. You also announced a new incoming freshman, and basketball is certainly the most international of sports, Coach. I don't want to butcher his name, so can you give it to me?
Agwook Arap.
Agwook Arap from South Sudan. By way of Omaha, Nebraska. So he's seen a few things, Coach. How does that process work in terms of the international recruits and why this guy's a fit for your program?
You know, it's interesting. There's a whole generation of players from South Sudan that have come over here, and he moved over at an early age, 4 years old when he moved. So he's basically been a U.S. citizen most of his life. But he played in Omaha, Nebraska. He was the Nebraska Player of the Year. Was a 6'6", 6'7" post player in high school. He committed to the University of Nebraska. Things didn't work out. They had a change of heart. He had a change of heart. He ended up going to a year of prep school in Atlanta. And it's at the prep school he started playing more on the perimeter, as a wing and showing a lot more of his skill set. And he's what we've always had in the past. He's got length, he's got athleticism, and he's got great desire to be a wonderful player. And so he'll be someone we'll bring in and start working with immediately the second summer session.
Sdsu head basketball coach Brian Dutcher on with Ben and Woods here on the Mighty 1090. So, Coach, first year under your belt, how you feeling going into year two? Feeling a lot more confident with the way things go as a head coach, getting over some growing pains, if you will.
Trip to the NCAA tournament doesn't hurt.
That doesn't hurt at all. How do you build on what you did last year?
It's wanting to be great. It's still believing in the dream that Coach Fisher and I started together when we came here, that we wanted to take San Diego State to a Final Four. And so we hung a banner this year. We went to the NCAA tournament, but the ultimate goal is to get this team to a Final Four. And so there's always work to be done to try to assure that happens. Obviously, recruiting is at the top of that list, getting talent, and then develop them into a team, to get them to share the ball, play together, and that's the great challenge. And the beauty of coaching is it's not the NBA where you get a franchise player or you're Golden State and you put a group together for 4, 5, 6 years, you hope. This is transition all the time. We lose Cam Rooks, Malik Pope, Trey Kell. We add new faces, new people, and we try to blend the next team. And obviously this year we had a new coach or two. And so it's always transition, it's always exciting, and it's always challenging.
Coach Dutcher with us on the Mighty 1090, and I think we're just over a week away from a big deadline. Your team obviously would be better if you've got Jaylen McDaniels back. He's testing the NBA waters. Have you heard anything lately? I mean, we're getting pretty close to that decision time. Is there like a lean one way or another at this point, Coach?
He had 5 workouts before the Combine. He worked out for the Cavaliers, Clippers, T-Wolves, Jazz, and Warriors. And then he didn't get invited to the Combine, which I knew was disappointing to him. And now that the Combine's over, this week he has the Celtics, Nets, Hawks, and Bulls. So he's got 4 more workouts this week. And so that will take him right up near the deadline. Obviously, I'm in contact with his parents on a weekly basis. I see Jaylen here on campus when he's in town. And when that last workout's over, we'll gauge the feedback that I get after every workout, sit with the parents and Jaylen, and let them make the decision they feel is in the best interest of Jaylen and his future. Obviously, I'll have input in it, but in the end, it's going to be Jaylen's decision with the assistance of his family.
And certainly that decision is going to change the dynamic a little bit one way or another. But as you just look at your roster, Coach, heading into next season, where is it that you want to focus your areas of improvement when you get the team back and practicing again? Where do you need to take the biggest steps forward next year?
I think this year maybe I'll try to emphasize the defense a little earlier. I thought we got better defensively as the season went on, and that was in large part because Malik Pope had to move to the center position, and the amount of help you have to give from that position once I moved Jaylen into the starting lineup was enormous for Malik, and he did a great job getting better and better as the season went on. This year with Nolan Narain coming back and 2 young bigs, the center is such a defensive key to anything you do, whether it's helping on ball screens, protecting the rim, early help on dribble drive, that we'll try to get our young bigs and Nolan up to speed a little quicker defensively where they're able to provide quality help yet guard their own man.
All right, well, Coach, we're looking forward to it. I know you've got the Maui Invitational this season, which will be a big early season test. When do you find out who you're playing in that event anyway?
I don't know when they give the pairings on that. We know it's an incredible field.
Yeah.
We have Arizona, Xavier. We have Iowa State, Illinois, Auburn. It's murderer's row, and we're one of them. So I know people are going to look across the bracket, and they're not going to want to see the Aztecs either. But we're looking forward to the challenge of a great early season tournament to kind of see where we are at the start of the year.
Well, I think Ben and Wood should be broadcasting live from that tournament.
Yeah, I would be down for that.
Wouldn't that be
For
nice?
sure.
Yeah, wouldn't it, though, Coach? If we don't happen to make it, then we'll see you somewhere else. But really appreciate you joining this morning. Thanks for your time. It was great catching up.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Brian Dutcher, the head coach of the Aztecs, 1 for 1 in his trips to the NCAA tournament.
That's pretty amazing.